This podcast is part of E2C Network, where we share the whole Auburn experience.
War Eagle Auburn fans, welcome to No Huddle, your source for Auburn football news and discussion, part of the E2C Network. I'm AJ Richardson, and I'm also here with Jared Davis. I think we won the bye week. It looked like we won the bye week. We got some positive recruiting news. We'll talk about that. I was looking back at a couple of our key players, and they're on track to be either a 1,000-yard receiver or a 1,000-yard rusher. We got a lot to talk about this bye week. Plus, we'll get into the Missouri game coming up this Saturday. Jared, I'm going to start out. How was your bye week? How was it not stressing about Auburn football and watching Auburn lose? Because that's the way we are right now.
There's a meme floating around that had Auburn playing the team bye week, and we lost 28-24. And the meme made it. The meme made it to me, and I was like, I think we fared pretty well. 4-point loss. So, but no, in reality, yeah, it was definitely nice and a really good weekend of football. I mean,
yeah,
there was, out of like the 5 big games, I think 3 of them went to overtime. Bama's almost went to overtime.
Yeah.
Ohio State, Oregon almost went to overtime. So I've never used the multi-view on YouTube. I thought it was obnoxious and ridiculous, but I actually had it going Saturday night because Tennessee, Florida, Oregon, Ohio State, LSU, Ole Miss were all going at one time.
Oh, yeah.
And 2 of those went to overtime.
Yep. I had the same thing going. And I'm very thankful because I was able to watch, like, for example, I think 2 of those games were in the final minutes in the fourth quarter. And I was like, I have to watch both of these. And I'm so glad it's one of those first world problems of like, I am so glad that they came out with this because now I can watch both.
I agree with you. And what I just realized though, and let's be honest, we probably all have too big of TVs already, but I was sitting there, I was like, I need a bigger TV because the little quadrant areas, you're squinting. You're like, I think Tennessee has the ball. I don't know.
Right.
I'm like, I need a bigger TV so that each little quadrant is like its own TV.
Yeah, it's like its own 40-inch TV.
Yeah.
But
again,
now it's like its own like 30-inch TV, which isn't that bad in reality.
Yeah. No, I was joking, but I was like squinting. I'm like, right. And then here's what would happen: you're watching it, and like they go back. The other quadrant goes, let's do a look in at other games, and so they're showing a play, and you're like, wait a minute, which one's live? Did that just happen? Is that a replay?
Yeah, I get that. Yep.
I was not built for multi-view, man.
Yeah. Well, and like I feel like I can be like ADHD in moments, but like that gets me going. I am just like wired. I'm like, ooh, 4 games. I can watch them all. And I'm like rotating my, literally going in a circle of like watching all 4. Like I watch 2 seconds of this one and the next 3 seconds of that one, and I'm on to the next one.
I don't even remember the 4th game they were giving us. But anyways, there was 4 games. I don't remember.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was 3 really good ones.
Yeah.
That all came down to the wire.
It's a nice thing. And guess what? Auburn fans, you got no hurt feelings.
We didn't lose.
Like, and we almost had, considering, how much I feel like Auburn fans hate Alabama. I mean, and Georgia. Mississippi State gave Georgia a good fight. I mean, both of those games, if one of those had flipped, that would have been one of the best bye weeks of my life. Either Alabama losing to South Carolina or Georgia losing to like a 1-win Mississippi State team. It's ridiculous that Georgia let them stay around for that long. Really? It's wild.
Did you watch the South Carolina game?
Yes, I did. And
2 minutes before halftime, Bama's up 14-0.
Yep.
At halftime, Bama's up 14-12.
Yeah.
That was the craziest ending. The touchdown on 4th down. The safety and then the pick, and I'm like, you look up 2 minutes ago, they're up 14-0. It's 14-12. I was like, that is stuff Auburn does. I'm like, they are playing like Auburn.
I guess we've been rubbing off on them a little too much. Which, hey, I'm glad Bama's finally experiencing some of that now that Saban's gone. Like, I keep having to remind myself that this is not the Nick Saban teams of past, because like, as much as like, as good as, Kalen DeBoer is, like, he was struggling against a 3-3 South Carolina team in Tuscaloosa. Wow. Just wow.
what him and Kirby have done with the consistency is just it's not normal. We're about to find out. I mean, you even got
Yeah.
Ryan Day. I mean, Ryan Day has the best roster in college football, and he goes up there and loses. I mean, it's normal to lose ball games.
Yeah.
And it's just going to be more normal with the NIL parity.
Yeah. I think that's the very interesting part. I mean, you're seeing it with Vandy too, where like Vandy wouldn't have been, a household name in the SEC. They would have
Yeah, they
always
wouldn't have
been
gotten
in
that.
that.
They wouldn't have gotten that quarterback. I mean, he got the
No.
quarterback because of the transfer portal and NIL from New Mexico
Yeah.
State. I mean, that doesn't happen if that doesn't. You know what I'm saying? So you're right.
Exactly. And I feel like that's the underrated part of all this, and probably part of the reason Saban was like, "I'm out of here. I'm out. See you later. This is not all in my favor anymore."
He
Um,
never actually said that, but yes, that's
mm,
100% why he retired.
I
But
mean, he said it, under his breath,
he said it
like,
without saying it.
yeah.
But the point I was going to get at is, who was the coach that left North Carolina basketball 3 years ago? He flat out said that.
Oh yeah.
The
I know
legend.
the old guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know you're talking about.
Okay. Yeah. Right. Gary Williams, something Williams. He flat out said it. Like
Yeah.
Saban said it without saying it, but the North Carolina guy's like, yeah, this ain't for me. I'm out.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah, it's a wild time, and I think it brings a lot of parity. I mean, it gives Auburn, for example, like you look at Auburn, and I think NIL. I mean, Auburn does NIL. It seems like very well. We're very upfront with people. Like even some of the more recruits, it's kind of funny. They're like, yeah, like they do it right, which I think that's a really good thing. Like you're not hearing about, say, the coaches offering a player, hey, come play for my team, get a $500,000 in NIL, and then come to find out there's no NIL deal for you, or it's like not even close to what you're expecting. And I haven't heard that happen at Auburn. Maybe it's happening in small scale, but I mean, to me, that's a good sign that like, hey, we're whatever they're saying to get the guys to come. Not only is it the love of Auburn, it's the family environment. There's, hey, come play for this team, which I think is very true. Like we're on the cusp of like turning a page, and you're starting like once we start winning and players start believing in the game plan, believing in themselves, like I think you turn this thing around. Now, maybe not this season, maybe you start to do it this season, but I feel like lots of opportunity there for this team. Like I'll give you like I'll give you like a couple like key players that in previous years we would not have or it would be tough to do this. Jarquez, he's on track to be like 1,000-yard rusher. He already has 528 yards rushing, and that might even be if we don't make a bowl game. He's still on track for that. And then you look at like Keandre Lambert-Smith as 1,000-yard. He's kind of on track to be 1,000-yard receiver for us. He's got 510 yards and 6 touchdowns, and he's averaging 21.3 yards per catch. And you're like, that's insane. Like the numbers are definitely in Auburn's favor. The wins are not coming, and part of me is like that's like culture thing. It's a players doubting themselves thing. It's sometimes just making dumb plays, like we've seen so many times in turnovers and whatnot. And you got to put points on the scoreboard, and Auburn's not doing that at an efficient rate. And part of me is like I don't think you're gonna figure that out in a bye week, but you can start this next week because you have 2 weeks to prepare for a team and really put together some good red zone plays and whatever to like get you going and everybody on the same page. So Jared, I wanted to kind of talk about what going, now that we're 6 games in, we're halfway through the season. What are some points that you think Auburn should focus in on in the second half of the year to be better?
Yeah, and real quick, because there's probably somebody screaming at the radio or the podcast. It was Roy Williams, the North Carolina coach.
Thank you.
Yes, Roy Williams. Well, and I was like, God, it's driving me crazy. So, yes. So, second half of the year, I mean, honestly, man, I am just simplifying everything, and I'm running this thing through number 5 and number 27. I am getting the ball in
Amen.
Jarquez and Keandre Lamar-Smith's hands as much as possible. I don't care if you know it's coming. I'm doing it anyways. Um, that's it.
When I
Run the
think
ball.
if you look at the defenses that we played, I mean, Oklahoma and Georgia are supposedly some of the best defenses. I don't think we're facing, and honestly, against those two teams, we actually moved the ball a decent amount. We just couldn't score, and it's like, all right, what else do we have left in the rest of the season? I don't think there's a defense as good as either one of those.
No, you're right. I mean, the funny thing, I talked, was talking to a buddy. I said, well, after watching football yesterday, I realized we could literally win every game on the rest of our schedule. We could also lose it,
Yeah,
except for Louisiana Monroe. But there is, we could beat Bama. I mean, watching South Carolina play them, we could beat Bama. The
yeah,
problem is we can't get out of our own way. And
yeah,
it's like crucial moments of games. Um, like that's what you gotta. I don't know how you fix that. I don't know what is causing it. Lack of focus, lack of being on the same page. We're not on the same page. I don't know who called the fourth and one play, or who didn't, but we were not on the same page. Not the offensive line, not Jarquez, not the coach, not the quarterback.
yeah.
So how do you fix that? That is what you focus on doing. If you fix the small details, I mean, I think we're at middle of the road in offense in the SEC.
Yeah,
I mean, we got a
we're
guy that's probably going to have 1,000 yards receiving, 1,000 yards rushing, like you said. So, like, we shouldn't be 2-4.
yeah. If you look at our stats, our pass efficiency is sixth in the SEC. Total offense is seventh in the SEC, like pretty much middle of the road. Our yards per rush is actually third best in the SEC, and yet here we are, and we're not scoring points. Like you look at the pass, like we're not scoring points in the ways that we're needing to, even though we're completing passes, we're running the ball well. It's just not getting in the end zone. And I mean, I feel like that's the thing that's going on all the time in the last it happened with Gus, it happened with Harson. Like, what's going on there? Like, do we just not believe that we can get in the end zone at will, like when we need to? I don't know.
I think Hugh's coaching too tight. He absolutely coached too tight in that Georgia game. I mean, they went in there and they were just trying to eat up clock and not screw up, because you could look at
Mm-hmm.
Alabama threw all over them. Mississippi State, based off the score, threw all over them, and we only got 13. Like, I would have gone in there and chucked that ball around. I feel like we went in there just not to get blown out.
Yeah.
I think they're coaching too tight, man. And I know it's a fine line of I'm telling them they need to clean up some things and then be loose, but you got to go out there and be loose. Like, I think Thorne is afraid of making a mistake. I think Hugh's afraid of making a wrong call.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what that is, but we're we're trying too hard almost, and you just can't win a ball game like that. You gotta go out there and be. If you watched LSU quarterback Saturday night, terrible. Is that 3 words? He was bad the entire game. But you know
Yeah.
what? He was a gunslinger. He went out there and kept throwing it around, and he threw a beautiful pass to send it to overtime.
Yeah.
And I don't think we have a guy to make that play.
Yeah. Well, it
Not when it's been going bad.
one thing, and I like to look at trends, particularly like in football over a season. And you were talking about like why, like especially over the last few games, it felt like, hey, we're trying to like tighten things up, which I think they needed to, because turnovers were terrible. So hey, we're gonna play super controlled ball, and like I agree against Georgia. If you like loosen that up just a little bit, you could be, playing a little bit tighter with Georgia. But it's almost like they came from, hey, we were turning the ball over like 3-4 times a game, it felt like, to, hey, we kind of figured out the turnover thing. We haven't really turned the ball over except for a pick six against Oklahoma. And that's kind of nice, but there's got to be this balance, right? Like, interceptions are going to happen. Like, you ask any quarterback, interceptions happen. You ask a coach, interceptions are going to happen. You just kind of like, it's like fumbles in football too. Like, they're going to happen, but you have to limit them. And you still have to kind of find that balance of pushing the edge, being aggressive, and also kind of playing within yourself. And that's what the coaches, I hope, especially during this bye week, are kind of reevaluating within themselves. All right, so let's jump into the Missouri game. This will be a 11 a.m. kickoff Central Time. Very excited for this because not only did we not get to see Auburn play, but it's a morning game. I think this kind of sets up decently well for Auburn versus Missouri. Missouri is 5-1 and 19th in the rankings, and you can tell they're kind of trending downward. Whereas I think as much as Auburn is losing, we have some trends in the positive, like we talked about with some of those stats. And I mean, especially anytime you go away, it's always scary, right? But this Missouri team is definitely a beatable team. And I mean, you look at kind of how Missouri plays. I think Auburn has a decent matchup against them. Like their quarterback slinging the ball around a decent amount. But I just have a feeling like if we just play, we can stay with Missouri for most, if not all, of this game, and maybe even sneak out a win all the way in Missouri. How are you kind of feeling coming into this? With an extra week of prep, extra week of rest. Like, how are you feeling as a fan for this upcoming game?
Time heals all things. Like, I'm 2 weeks removed from watching us play football, so now I think we're good at football again. I actually think right now I think we win the ball game. I don't have a rhyme or reason as to that. I watched Missouri play. I think we have more weapons than Missouri, believe it or not. We haven't utilized them in a full game capacity in a wise manner, but we have more weapons than they do. So I just think we find the math is not mathing. Like Hugh Freeze, I don't think Hugh Freeze is going to win a championship at Auburn, but Hugh Freeze is a good football coach, and we have talent on our team more than last year. It's just been fluky things, and you just got to feel like it's going to turn around at some point.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not making a run here and going 8-4, but like it's got to turn, and so I think we win, man. I think we go on the road and win. I don't know what score I'll predict on that, but I think we find a way, and I'll probably feel different at halftime on Saturday. But right now,
you're probably
we're
gonna. It's either gonna be I feel like it's gonna be one of two things. It's like Auburn is up 10 points or something on Missouri, or we're down by like 2 touchdowns. It's gonna be one or the other. Like, and you're gonna feel super optimistic for we're winning, and you're like, oh, we figured it out. And then you're like, but we're also Auburn. Like, hey, set your expectations correctly. Like, I have to remind myself because like that happened, with the Oklahoma game. You're like, we're up, what was it, like 10 points, and it was like less than 10 minutes to go against Oklahoma. You're like, all right, awesome, we might do this. And then we did not. And we shot ourselves in the foot.
I felt good. Our Oklahoma, believe it or not, was the only game I felt good about all year, and I had that same feeling about this one. So, and we really should have won the Oklahoma game. So I don't know. I just checked the schedule, and I have essentially 2 soccer games during all this. So if we lose, it's going to be good for me. If we lose, I don't have to watch it. If we win, I can go back and watch it and already know what happens.
Hey, that's fair. Good for you. Glad you have an escape, because
I do.
I will not. I will be glued to that TV watching every play because I love it. I love the pain. Like I have a joke or a phrase that I say this when I like work out. It hurts so good, and you're like, what does that mean? It's like, it hurts, but it's good for you. And I'm like, sometimes a football game, it hurts you, it humbles you, and in the end it still hurts, but it's still like it's a good hurt. You're like, I still love Auburn. I love Auburn.
I think somebody wrote a song about that in the 80s, didn't they? I don't want to sing it, but didn't
it
hurt so good?
Probably
Sometimes
did.
love don't feel like it should. Come on and hurt so good. Okay, I told you I
it probably was.
I just started. Yeah. You don't know anything about the 80s.
I don't.
That came before the 90s. AJ.
Oh, what's the 80s?
They had cars. We had landlines.
They have TVs?
You did, but you had to walk up and like pull the knob out.
Oh,
Like
dang.
you couldn't remote.
I couldn't do the multi-view on YouTube. I couldn't do that.
No
Oh,
multi-view.
dang.
No.
Rough.
That
It was a rough life.
It was a rough life. Yes. It was
How'd
bad.
y'all live? Y'all just live in black and white? Like, what the
I
heck?
mean, it was tough. It was a tough life. We survived, but it was not fun. We didn't know what we were missing out on. You're like, oh,
Apparently
this is
not.
fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Let's go on to our players to watch for this game. We'll do our normal offense, defense, and special teams. Players to watch. Jared, I'll start out with you. Offensively, who are you going to be watching in this game?
I told you who we need to be using, right? Jarquez
KLS
and KLS.
KLS. But pick one.
But here's the thing. We know what we're getting with them. They've been consistent. So I'm going to be watching Cam Coleman.
Oh.
Because I think we need to run the offense through the other two guys, but we're going to have to take some shots with Cam, and we need him to start being super Cam.
Yeah.
So I want to.
And they started, I like even Coach Hugh Freeze talked about it in one of his press conferences. Like the teams are starting to figure out who Cam Coleman is, and they will like shade over a safety or whatnot. So they almost have like double coverage on him on most plays. And so to me, that says other guys are going to be open. And when Cam Coleman gets open and they don't, double cover him, yeah, that's the time for Cam Coleman to shine. So I think that's a good one. I think I'm going to pick, I keep going back to like, if you're going to make adjustments, it's looking at your run game and saying we're strong and we need to be running the ball a little bit more. So I'm going to say Jarquez, but just generally running backs like Damari Austin. I think the offense needs to be a little bit more run through them because you look at, we're third in efficiency in running this so far in the season. Like that's really solid. With, again, think about how much we pass the ball and yet we're still super efficient with running it. When we run it well. And I think you got to do that again. And I think this is a good time to do it out of this bye week. All right, let's go to defense, and I'll start out with this one. In my mind, you got to look at a lot of these freshmen because anytime you have a bye week, really any of them, it's just extra practice. It's extra time for them to come out and play really hard. And, there's just so many of them. Like, I'm just thinking about, Keldrick Falk or potentially even, like, somebody like Jay Crawford, and you're like, that dude is just playing so good as a true freshman. I guess I'll go probably Jay Crawford. Like he's becoming like, I always try to find like one really good cornerback, and he has become like, it used to be like Carlton Davis or Noah Igbenogany, and I think Jay Crawford is pretty quickly becoming that guy for me. So I'll go Jay Crawford. Who are you going to be watching, Jared?
That's a good one. I think I may have said him before. I think I'm going to go K.M. Lee. I feel like we need him to, become elite. And I almost feel like he might have had a better year last year than this year. So
yeah,
let's see if he can get that mojo back. I think he can. If he can become a lockdown, he has that capability. So kind of like to see him get back in his groove. And if you can, essentially, if you lock down a side of the field, that's what you mentioned. Some of the guys used to do that. It really limits what the offense can do.
Oh, so, yeah.
Let's see if we can have somebody step up and do that. And while Crawford probably could, he is the true freshman, so I'm going to go with the true sophomore and see if he's the one that can make it happen.
Oh yeah, I want to see him step up. He headed into this season, he was probably my favorite cornerback, and he's got a little bit more to be desired, like this year. And maybe it is because a lot of these young guys like Jay Crawford are stepping up, but I mean that's something I feel like K.M. Lee can do and play really high level of playing the SEC. All right, let's go to special teams. My gut is still saying kicker because Towns has still been our kicker. I think I'm just gonna have to go with him. I mean, I feel like it's an easy pick, but Towns is, when he's good, he's good. When he's a little bit off, as we saw, he can be a little bit off. And so we'll see how he goes. And I really hope it's not a field goal game, but that could be the way this game goes. I mean, especially I think the line right now is about like right around 5 points favored in Missouri's way, so it could be a field goal game or so. So, Jared, who are you thinking about for special teams that you'll be watching for this Missouri game?
I mean, it's got to be Towns, like you said. It'd be great to have Keontae make a play on punt returns, but
Yeah.
that won't cost you the game, I don't think. A field goal might. So,
Yeah.
yeah, we've been struggling there, and I hate it for him. He's a true freshman. He wasn't
Yeah.
expecting to have to come in and do this. And maybe McPherson's back. I don't know. He's been probable the last 2 weeks and has not played. But now we're 2 more weeks removed from that. So
Yeah,
I don't know,
essentially
man.
a month later.
Yeah, I mean, if he goes out there, if McPherson's out there, you got to feel really good, right? But
Oh yeah.
We got to make field goals. I mean, you just got to make field goals. And true freshman or not, I hate it for him. I really do. But we got to find a way to just get points on the board and score more touchdowns. I know you're talking special teams, but we need to make sure when we're in the red zone, we're scoring touchdowns as well. So not even putting him in that spot. But that's a different story. So we'll go. I'm with you. I'll go Towns on that.
Yeah, definitely. So let's go to our score predictions. The line has actually come down from when we did our preseason shows, 9.5 points favored to Missouri, and right now it's again like right around 5 points in Missouri's favor. So, Vegas is anticipating this being a close game. The ESPN predictor is giving Auburn about a 32% chance of winning this game. So you got a decent shot against a ranked opponent away of winning this game. And both of us had at the beginning of the season predicted Missouri would win by 3 points. Any adjustments? I know you said you're going to win, like Auburn is going to win this game. Any actual score predictions that you're thinking of that pop out of how this game might go?
Yeah, and also real quick, you mentioned the beginning of the season 9.5. It opened up this week at 7.5. So, and I saw it even as low as 4.5 this evening. So I don't know. I'm not smart enough to understand all that, but sounds like the money's on Auburn coming in for right now. I think we'll win by 10. I think we'll win by 10.
That would be
AJ.
huge. I think if you go to Missouri and get a double-digit win, what does that do to your team? I mean, Auburn's about to go to Kentucky, then come back home to Vandy, and you finish out with ULM, Texas A&M, and Bama. I think that sets you up super well. And I'm trying to remember, I remember Gus was so good at, coming out of a bye week and having his guys mentally ready, prepared, and good to go. I don't remember that necessarily for Hugh Freeze, at least last year. I remember him being fine, but I just remember Gus was on fire, and these guys were ready to go. So I'm hoping this is a good turning point, a good week for them preparing for Missouri. I'm gonna predict. I think Auburn does win. I'm gonna say by 3 points. I think it's a little bit closer than what you're thinking. But if we win by 3 points at Missouri, again, I still think that's good. But if we win by 10, like you're predicting, that's going to light a fire under this team and give them hope that I feel like they need. And I mean, us as fans, we need it just as much as I'm sure these players are feeling it and really needing a good win. All right, so let's go to our top of the offensive threats. Again, this is based on who will score the most touchdowns, and then if there are people with the same number of touchdowns, then the tiebreaker is essentially number of yards. I'll start out. I think I'm going to go with Jarquez. I think, again, we focus in on running the ball and running it a little bit more with Jarquez. I would love to see his touches stay close to 20 every game, because he is just that capable, and when he touches the ball, he makes stuff happen. So I think that's going to be my guy as my top offensive threat. Jared, who are you thinking about as your top offensive threat for Auburn?
I was going to say Jarquez, but just to be fun, let's go with KLS, just to make it a little different.
I feel like those are our two guys that we keep going back and forth on, and it's probably not a bad bet either way. Like, if either of them have a great day and score,
it better be one of those two.
If we win, it's going to have to be one of those.
Yes.
All right. So, an Auburn fan perspective of SEC, let's go there for a little bit. I know we already mentioned some of them, but I want to get Jared riled up. So here we go. Georgia game. They're playing Mississippi State. Mississippi State player runs into the sideline, and Kirby gets all just like he's mad. He's getting angry. He's like, and then he comes and shoves a Mississippi State player. Explain that to me, Jared. How does that happen? And yet he doesn't get a fine. How does that happen?
The only thing I know is that after that happened, I think some of the sports writers went on and said, "This reminds me of how bad of a person Bruce Pearl is."
Triggered them.
Triggered them. I'm reminded of how bad of a person Bruce Pearl is, because that's all. Basketball is about to start, and that's all people can say about Bruce Pearl. So when I saw that happen, that's what I thought. Honestly, about the play itself, I mean, it shouldn't happen. It's a weird situation. Like, I've seen some things like that happen, and it clearly intentional. This one did not look intentional at all. However, it also can't happen. So it's very weird. Yeah. It's like, I don't think Kirby saw that Mississippi State player and purposely pushed him. But then also at the same time, like, you're the head of a major football program. And, I just go back to thinking, if that was a player that did on the Georgia sideline that did that, like, would it have been a penalty? There's a lot of talk. People are like saying Kirby should be fired. I heard somebody say that. No. It ain't that. And honestly, I'm not even.
Even if he punched a player, I don't know if he gets fired over that. But it was just literally a shove.
It literally, the only argument against, like, to me, it's like, okay, he didn't mean to do it, but then the other side of that is like, who did he think he was shoving? Like, even if it's his own player, that's not great. So I don't know what you do with it. I'm not bothered if they do nothing. Although it's just funny because it's like, if a player would have done this, they would have probably gotten at a bare minimum a penalty.
Oh yeah. And I'm honestly just amazed, like, the SEC doesn't come in and fine him or something. Because you're like, Kirby, like, go take $100,000 out of his wallet. He doesn't care at this point.
You're right. Yeah, fine. At this point, because they did nothing on the field. What I think would have probably solved all this in my mind, and I realize some people are real bothered by it, and I don't tell people what to think. I think a 15-yard penalty for unsportsmanlike would have been give them that on the field, and let's move on. Because that's what you would have called if a player did it. I don't think it was egregious, but it needed to be addressed.
Agreed.
And it was not addressed. And I don't think Sankey basically came out and said he won't do it again. And I'm like, so it did not get addressed, basically. But
wow.
Again, to me, it was not egregious.
I mean, to me, that's just showing you how, like, biased they are towards the top teams. Like, I mean, you saw it with Saban. Like, how many times they'd just be like, whatever, Saban's doing Saban things, or now it's Kirby's doing Kirby things, and you're like, I'm not gonna find you, whatever. You just keep winning the SEC, and we'll look the other way. It feels like sometimes.
I'll end with this. If you could promise me that if that would have been Hugh Freeze or Gus Malzahn that did that, and everybody would have reacted the same way, I'd be like, okay, that's fair. But that's not how it would have happened. This would have been all over Alabama news, ESPN news. Auburn's cheating. I mean, I think Aaron Murray's mom still talks about us tackling her son too hard. So, like, you know how that would have gone. That's the only thing that gets me riled up. But on the surface of it, looking at it, I'm like, okay, throw the flag, let's move on.
That's right. The only other game that I mean, obviously Alabama almost losing to South Carolina is hilarious. And Tuscaloosa, wow. But also, I know the game didn't end up that. I mean, it was pretty close, but like Tennessee almost lost to Florida, and it was like 0-3 at half, and Florida was winning. What, like, that was again a wild thing. Here's another one, and this is again one of those like storylines definitely playing out in the SEC is Ole Miss, and how many times they have faked an injury. So I'll give you the stat. Ole Miss has had 29 stoppages in the last 3 games against Power 4 conference teams. 29, and a lot of those, not every single one, but a lot of them are a player legitimately or not so much faking an injury. 29. That's just wild to me. That's like 10 per game, roughly. Wow. Just that to me is that's definitely unethical.
Well, what you rely on in society on a lot of things that aren't illegal or against rules is you rely on people to be ethical, and they're not. And until they change the rule, I mean, we can keep it's. They've made it very clear that they are going to do that. I mean, that's just what they do.
Yeah.
So you need to change the rule, and you can change the rule. I mean, if we're willing to eject a player because they went in for a tackle and the offensive guy lowers his head in that moment,
right?
We can find ways to punish a team when it's clear as day that the guy was told to go down.
Right.
I mean,
like to me, that's I think some of these should be legitimately video reviewed. I mean, we have enough video evidence of these happening. It should be, I don't know if it's a 15-yard penalty, but it at least should be something. 5-10 yards, like punish them. Make them pay for it. Like if you deem it as this person is literally looking over to the sideline, they're completely fine, and they just fall to the ground, and then 2 minutes later they're up walking around, and then the next play they're back in the game. You're like, obviously you weren't hurt. Don't play around with me right now.
So here's what's going to happen, because they're never going to do this because they're afraid of the player's safety. So they're not going to probably ever go penalty route. But I agree that's the best way. So what I do is I say, all right, you missed 5 plays. If you come out because you went down on the field, you have to miss 5 plays. And that's for your player's safety. We want to make sure you're adequately reviewed, checked out.
Yep.
So that might help a little bit. If you go down on the field, if you are so hurt you can't get off the field, you have to miss 5 plays.
I'm not opposed to that. I mean, think about like concussion protocol, right? In the NFL, like they have to come off. It's a requirement, and then they have to go through however long it takes to get the concussion protocol. Like, did you actually have a concussion? And that takes a few minutes before they determine whether or not they did. And then if they didn't, you can go back out there. So
if you can get off the field if you can get off the field on your own accord and you're hurt, no, you don't miss plays. But if you go down on the field, can't get off on your own, you probably shouldn't play for 5 downs. You probably do need to be evaluated. Let's be honest. I mean,
right.
If you truly are injured, you didn't get off the field on your own accord, you're probably not coming back in 5 plays. So let's just make that a rule.
I think that's a fair rule. So SEC, come listen to us. We have brilliant ideas for you. Come over here. We love UNCA. Do it.
I'm sure Sankey is listening to this.
Any other final thoughts before we get out here, Jared?
Nope. I think we've pretty much covered it all.
Cool. And how can the people stay in touch with you?
You can find me on Facebook under my name, Jared Davis.
And you can find me on Twitter at AJAY_. It's always great to be an Auburn Tiger, and War Eagle.
War Eagle.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode on the E2C Network. On your way out, I want to remind you to stop by e2cnetwork.com. It's your one-stop shop for all our content across our podcast, YouTube channel, and much more. To stay up to date with us, make sure you're following social media accounts such as Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. While our content here may always be Auburn sports heavy, if it's orange and blue, it's what we do. War Eagle.